just a moment at verse 30. This is a lesson about freedom. But I am convinced, as I have tried to indicate in my bulletin article this morning, that many of us really don't understand what freedom is all about. We talk about freedom this time of year especially. It's our Independence Day, anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, a document that led to the Revolutionary War, which led to our freedom and our form of government today. We talk about freedom. We laud freedom. This morning we have sung about freedom. But I think freedom is something, as we said, that can be misunderstood. Because we think of freedom as freedom from restrictions, freedom from being held down, freedom to do whatever we want to do. And that's really not what freedom is about. You see, though we declared our independence and won our independence from England, we are still under government. You see, freedom brings with it responsibility. Freedom without responsibility, freedom without some kind of boundary, is nothing but anarchy. And anarchy can lead right back into slavery. Let me give you an illustration. You take a young man, he's grows up in his daddy's house, and every week his daddy gives him an allowance. He takes that allowance and he buys this or he buys that with him, and he comes back and says, "Dad, I want some more money." And he says, "I'm sorry, son, that's your allowance. You used all your allowance." And the son says, "I can't wait till I'm on my own. I'll be able to make as much money as I want. I'll be able to spend that money any way that I want to." And so he has a car. Maybe he's bought him a car. And he does something wrong. Maybe he stays out too late one night. He comes back home and his dad says, "Give me the keys to the car, son." And he says, "Well, Dad, I bought that car with my money." He says, "Yeah, but you're still living under my household. You give me keys to the car." And the boy says, "I can't wait till I'm on my own. Then I'll stay out as late as I want. I'll drive my car any way I want, and nobody will be able to take it away from me." You see, freedom without any kind of restriction is nothing but anarchy. Freedom has implied within the name responsibility. So the young man, he leaves daddy's house. He gets a job. He spends his money any way he wants to. He takes his credit. He spends the money, what he can get on credit, any way he wants to. Until finally he's down to the point where his income, every penny that he goes, is trickling to those creditors because he's now in bondage again to debt. And that car, any kind of car he wants to drive, anytime that he wants to drive it, well, somebody pulls up in his driveway one day and they take the car away. You see what I mean? Freedom is not freedom from restriction. Freedom brings with it responsibility. Well, in John chapter 8, Jesus talks about freedom. Now, I'm going to begin at verse 30. You'll notice if you have the New International Version or some other versions of the Bible, the paragraph marker, this is actually the end of the previous paragraph, but I want to include this verse. "Even as he spoke, many put their faith in him. To the Jews who had believed him, Jesus said, 'If you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free.' They answered him, 'We are Abraham's descendants and have never been slaves to anyone. How can you say that we shall be set free?' Jesus replied, 'I tell you the truth, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. Now a slave has no permanent place in the family, but a son belongs to it forever. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. I know that you are Abraham's descendants. Yet you are ready to kill me because you have no room for my word. I'm telling you what I have seen in the Father's presence, and you do what you have heard from your father. Abraham is our father, they answered. If you were Abraham's children, said Jesus, then you would do the things Abraham did. As it is, you are determined to kill me, a man who has told you the truth that I heard from God. Abraham did not do such things. You are doing the things of your own father does. We are not illegitimate children, they protested. The only father we have is God himself. And Jesus goes on to tell them that they are acting on the characteristics of their true father, who is the devil, because they were trying to kill him. As I mentioned, I wanted to read verses 30 and 31 together. And the reason the New International Version has put a paragraph marker here in a heading is because Jesus was addressing one group of people and saying something, and the author was commenting on one group of people. And now Jesus is addressing another group of people, and the author is commenting on that group of people. Verse 30, it says, even as he spoke, many put their faith in him. He's talking in that verse about true believers. The word faith in verse 30 and 31 is the same. But the preposition following that is different. We find here, many put their faith in him, has to do with a deep faith. It has to do with trusting someone, trusting them completely. It is, in the original, they put their faith into him, into Jesus. But look at verse 31. To the Jews who had believed him, Jesus said. The word faith is the same, but the preposition is different. Here it says, to the Jews who had believed on him. And what we find in the text, John is making a distinction for us between those who believe in Jesus and those who believe on Jesus. And he has some things to say about those who only believe on Jesus. Those who believe in Jesus have committed their lives to him. Those who believe in Jesus have totally surrendered their lives to him. But now he speaks to those who have only believed on Jesus. And if you even look at the tense, he says, it's stated in the perfect, to the Jews who had believed on him. So what we're talking about is a faith here that is the beginning of faith for all of us, believing on Jesus, believing the facts about Jesus, believing some of the things, maybe even all the things that Jesus said. But their faith was wavering because they had not yet trusted themselves to them. John makes this distinction really throughout the gospel. It's possible to only believe on him without actually believing in him and trusting your lives to him. So Jesus is now talking to those who have an incomplete faith. Maybe they believe some of the facts, but that faith is beginning to dissipate because they have not yet committed themselves to him. He says, if you hold to my teaching, then you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Let me talk a moment or two about truth. I believe one of the reasons we have trouble with breaking free from sin in our life